to know about. I'll be speaking on the classroom psychology. Today we will be talking about the classroom psychology. And this session is meant basically for, if I talk about the goals and objectives for the classroom psychology. The classroom psychology is basically what we and how we are managing our classrooms and how effectively are we doing it. So in the today's session, our goals and objectives will be to identify the characteristics of effective teachers, and we will also be learning about the relationship between the classroom psychology and the classroom management and the role of effective teachers in the classroom management. To understand why children misbehave and identify effective strategies for dealing with student misbehaviors, to identify techniques for organizing and managing effective learning environments. Okay, so in order to maintain the continuous flow of internet, I'm just switching off my video. Okay. And please keep saying ha or nodding so that I know that I'm audible continuously. Okay. So what the classroom psychology is? So the classroom psychology is all about the things that a teacher does to organize students, space of the classroom, time of the lecture, and the material so that instructions in content and student learning can take place effectively. So the classroom psychology is just not understanding the students. It is a complete gamut of classroom management systems. So the major goals which is included in the classroom psychology is to foster students' involvement and cooperation in all classroom activities, to establish a productive working environment, and to also manage the students' behavior for a productive outcome. So now talking about the characteristics of a well-managed classroom, it should involve the students should be deeply involved with their work, which is assigned to them lecture by lecture basis or lab by lab basis. Or the students should know what is expected out of them. And the students who know already, they are already successful because they come out with a better solution for the assignments and the better results. There is a relatively little wasted time, and all the classroom time is very well used, consumed, and there is no confusion left in the student's mind, and there is no disruption during the flow of the process of the classroom teaching. The climate of the classroom is work oriented, should be work oriented, but relaxed and pleasant. A well managed classroom is always a task oriented environment, and this task procedure is always advised to be given prior hand to the students so that they also know what they are going to learn today and how they are going to do it. It's about the procedures of doing. It should be a predictable environment because students, if they having the handouts, what they are going to learn today, so they will be mentally prepared, and the expected outcome will be there. A well-managed classroom should be ready and should be waiting for the students with all the equipments placed well on the places and with all the procedures already set. So a well-managed classroom is the effective teacher plays an important role in managing the classroom. So the effective teacher exhibits the following, exhibits and establishes good control of the classroom. An effective teacher should have a good control over the classroom, then only we say that the teacher is very good. So the effective teacher does things right and consistently. There is no deviation in their doings in the one class to another. And the effective teacher exhibits and affects and touches the lives, and the students usually remember them as a mentor also throughout their life. An effective teacher exhibits positive expectations for all the students in the class, not all, even they are slow performers or the fast performers. They establishes good classroom management techniques. They arrange the visual display items, audio display items well before in hand, before going for a classroom. An effective teacher also exhibits designs lessons for the students' mastery. They work cooperatively and learns from the colleague. They seek out a mentor who serves as a role model and goes to professional meetings to learn how a goal or striving for excellence. A effective teacher should also be flexible and adaptable as per the requirement of the students in the classroom, and they listens patiently. Because an effective teacher should be one who can actually know how to handle the students with a lot of patience. They knows the difference between an effective teacher and an ineffective one. Now, the effective classroom, because as I mentioned, a classroom psychology is mainly based on how are we going to manage our students. And we should be focusing in to all the students, just not the one. So understanding students, we should first know, a teacher should first know that why students misbehave. So the behavior of the students can be like depending upon the various functions. They might behave, sometimes misbehave, just to seek the attention of the teacher or the peer members. Here, the adults means the teachers. They sometimes students' behaviors come out loud when they want to attain power or the control or to display their superiority on the other peers. If they want to take revenge or they want to take attention or they have a want to feel good and to play around nature. So these are the considered as a misbehavior in a managed classroom. They have a fear of failure and they keep on doing some activity in the classroom, so the classroom is disturbed. So this teacher should be able to first identify that this is a misbehavior of the student. So it should not be taken casually and should be addressed immediately. The proactive intervention strategies for the classroom management should have a classroom rules, a set classroom rules of the do's and the don'ts, which we will be discussing further. The classroom schedules, the physical space, a proper sitting space for the students and the equipments, the attention signals, which a teacher should identify immediately and should address immediately. And they should also know, but probably by the end of this session, you would be knowing what are the attention signals. We will be talking about it. And from the beginning and the ending of the routine sessions, how it should be done in a professional manner so that if the classroom remains in control throughout the session. And the student work, how it should be addressed, how should feedback should be given, and the student classroom management plan. So first we'll talk about, as I discussed, classroom rules. So we'll talk about classroom rules. The rules for the rules. Keep the number to a minimum. For example, if your class is having a strength of 50 students, so addressing all the 50 students gets impossible sometimes. So you can divide the classrooms into smaller groups of say 10 students or 5 groups of 10 students. Similarly, you can make a further smaller groups and you can ask them to sit in the groups so that you can see the face of all the students and all the students, you can even read the students' expressions while you are teaching. And an effective classroom's rule also includes that we should keep the language very simple. The selection of the words should be simple so that all the fast learners and the slow learners all are able to understand it equally. And if we talk about further the classroom rules, it should be representing your basic expectations and in a very simple language. First of all, whenever you are entering the classroom, you must tell students what by the end of the session you are expecting students to learn, and you can then further do a quick revision of what they have, quick takeaways of the classrooms. Keep the word positive if possible. Make sure rules are specific and you stick to it and you stick to the rules. And a very thin line between getting friendly with the students. So that should be taken care always. And make sure your rules describe behavior in your body language itself, not by the words. Make sure that rules describe behavior which is measurable. Not unexpected rules should not be imposed on the students. Assign consequences to breaking the rules. Like if you do this, this will happen, but in a positive manner, but not in a form of a punishment. Always include a compliance rule, keep the rules posted, and keep on reminding them periodically. Other examples, we'll first try to understand what are the inappropriate rules and what are the preferred rules. So the inappropriate rules are like we say be responsible. Instead of saying be responsible, we can use some other sentence like keep hands, feet, and objects to yourself. So this is more appropriate to be heard by the students. Instead of saying pay attention, you must change the sentence to something like raise your hand and wait for the permission to speak. Do your best. So instead of imposing just the direct sentences, it can be indirect sentences like sit in your seat unless you have permission to leave, or walk, don't run at all times in the classrooms, or discuss but do not shout. So you are giving them the permission in a positive way. Be polite, do not shout, control your body language. So these kind of signals should keep giving to the classrooms. Classroom schedules. Now we see how the classroom schedule should be managed. Budget your academic time. If your session is of 1 hour, then first 5 minutes should be given by the teacher for the directed reviews, like what we have done in the previous class and what we are going to do today. What we learned from the previous class and what would be the positive possible outcome of today's class, and what is expected out of the students to behave in this particular session. So this hardly takes 1 or 2, 3 minutes when we describe this. Then the next comes 10 minutes introduction of the new concepts. Then another further 10 minutes can be for the guided practices, working on the assignment, discussing the assignments. And the next 25 minutes could be independent cooperative work or the session which has to be given. And the 10 minutes should be again the teacher directed corrections. Now, managing the physical space in the classroom. So as soon as the teacher enters the classroom, first of all, a classroom should look appropriate. So this is the work of the teachers. Before allowing students to just enter into the classroom, they first learn to manage to sit in the classroom. So arrange the, if even if the classroom is disturbed, we can of course ask students to manage it. First, rearrange the tables and the chairs. There is no harm if the students are doing it. While doing in this regular practices, it becomes a habit of the student to sit in a managed classroom. So ask them to arrange desks to optimize the most common types of instructional tasks you will have students engaged in. Desk in row, front to back. And ask students to occupy first rows first, because students usually have the habit of sitting at the back. So bring this by a procedure into the habit of the students. Desk in rows side to side, or desk could be in cluster or should be in the U shape, the way a teacher wants to address the student, so the classroom can be rearranged. So this is a physical management of the space of the classroom. So make sure you have access to all parts of the room. You can walk through the aisles. Aisles should have a proper traffic control should be there. Feel free to assign seats and change at your will, and minimize the disruption caused by higher traffic areas in the classrooms, and arrange to develop some of your bulletin board display space to student work. And if needed, arrange for a timeout space in your classroom that is an unobstructed as possible. Desks do not have to be in a traditional row. It can be arranged as per your requirement so that you could have an eye contact with all the students in the classrooms. A student who causes behavioral problems, how to address it? Now we need to understand what are the behavioral problems of the students. They can be aggressive. The hyperactive students, aggressive doesn't mean only the anger. It could be the hyperactive, agitated, unruly students. Resistant, the students who already have something in their mind and they have a blocked mind to learn something new. So the students who won't work. So we have to first clean their brain, clear slate so that they can start learning. Distractible, the student who can't concentrate. Dependent, who always wants the help of others. Location for students who cause behavioral problems, separative and nearby. So the separative is disruptive students, may be aggressive, and they can be resistant students as well. And the nearby, it could be disruptive, dependable students, and the destructive students as well. Preparing the work area in the classroom. Now arrange the work areas and seats so that each student can be easily visible, and you can monitor all the students all the time during the session and areas no matter where you are in the room. Be sure that students will be able to see and you as well as frequently use areas of the classroom. Keep traffic areas clear. Keep access to the storage areas, bookcases, or the display areas where the equipments are kept. Make sure you have enough chairs for the work area. Be sure to have all necessary materials advancedly placed in the classroom. test all the equipments which you are going to use in the classroom so that there shouldn't be any sorry pickers and student gets a chance to take a ride of you. Use materials such as tote bags, boxes, coffee cans, disams to store materials which has to be displayed and students will be needing frequently. Arrange work areas where students can go for reading and maths group, science group, lab areas, project areas, or the design areas in case of design students. And remember, you may not need these areas in the very first class, but in the consecutive classes, you must arrange the classroom freehand. Prepare the students area and ask students to clear the table, and it should be ready only for the productive work so that their bags, backpacks, books, lunch boxes, mobile phones, and everything should be kept at an appropriate place. So it should not be distractive the classroom. So all these arrangements should be done before you can start a session, and this can be done within a 1 or 2 minutes of the initial minutes of the session beginning. Prepare yourself and your area. Do not create a barrier between yourself and the students. Sometimes students have a habit of keeping a backpack so that they can hide their face behind it. So just ask them to remove the backpack. If they have the laptop, ask them to flap down the laptop cover so that you can see the faces of the students. So once we bring this into the habit to see the students' faces, we know the expressions. And just by knowing the expressions, we can immediately deal with the situations. Place the desk away from the door so that no one can take things from your desk and quickly walk away. And communicate to your students that everything in and on the desk is to be treated as personal property and off the limits of them. Keep your personal belongings in a safe location. And teacher who are ready, maximize students' learning and minimize students' misbehavior. Attention signals. Now, these are the something which we should know from the students immediately. Like, what are the signals we should immediately handle, because that may cause some havoc later. So decide upon a signal you can use to get students' attention. Teach students to respond to the signal by focusing on you as in particular. Okay. And maintaining complete silence throughout the class. Example, raise the hand. Say, class, your attention, please. At the same time, swing right arm in a circular motion from 9 position to the 12 position. Now, this will benefit, like student will grab the attention of your hand, they start looking at it. So this is the best way to grab the attention from the students. The advantages of the raising hand, it can be given from any location in the room. It can be used outside the room. It has both a visual and auditory component. It has a ripple effect. So immediately student will look at you when you raise up the hands, and you can move your fingers to grab the attentions of the students as well. Now we'll talk about the discipline, routine, and procedures. Punishment versus discipline. So now what is more easier, creating discipline in the classroom or the punishment? So we will see the malice effect of giving the punishment and the benefit when we create the discipline in the classroom. So why do we punish? We usually punish because it works, and punishment is an easy and effective and a natural way. 95% of our students. It's quick. It requires lower level of thinking skills, and it is just first way if the students are doing something, punish them. That is a usual behavior. Whereas the D here represents discipline and the P here represents punishment. So while in the discipline is firm and consistent but peaceful. Whereas punishment inflicts harm in the name of good, because the punishment actually develops a negative behavior in a student. Whereas discipline integrates positive behavior changes, which is expected. Whereas punishment is worst is expected and the worst is often received. Usually, because that is a harsh way of dealing the situation. Discipline, the youth may be angry at the first, but calls for self-evaluation and change rather than self-degradation. Whereas the punishment agitates and often causes anger, further increase of the anger and resentment from the part of participation. Discipline strives to replace an unwanted behavior with a desirable behavior, whereas punishment takes away a behavior by the force, but it replaces it with nothing. Discipline allows child to rebuild self-esteem because it's a regular, sustainable, long procedure, and whereas punishment damages fragile esteem for a while, and if it is not controlled immediately, it can take a long route also. Disciplinarian is in control of own emotion. Discipline is the behavior which can be controlled by the own, whereas the punishment allows anger to be released physically by the punisher, allowing for dangerous loss of control. And the punishment can be physically and emotionally dangerous and usually cuts the relationship there itself. Whereas the discipline is not threatening, it is productive, it is constructive, and discipline offers shows the caring aspect of the procedures. Discipline takes time and energy, but consequences are logical and encourages restoration, whereas punishment is immediate and high impact, but it's hardly even logical. Now, important aspect of a well-disciplined classroom. It has majorly three aspects: discipline, procedures, and routine. The discipline concerns how students behave, whereas procedures concerns how things are done. Okay, so both can be applied. Discipline has penalties and rewards, whereas procedures have no penalties of the rewards. Usually the procedures are given pre-hand so that students know how to behave, how to sit, how to talk. So this is a procedural building, a behavioral procedure building in the students. Procedures are the statements of student expectations necessary to participate successfully in classroom activities, to learn, and to function effectively in the school environment. It allows many different activities to take place effectively during the classroom day, often several at the times with a minimum of wasted time. It increases on-task time and greatly reduces the disruptions, and it helps running the classroom smoothly. Procedure answers questions such as what to do when the bell rings. So students usually see the behavior of the students even when the professor is teaching, or they just, if the bell is ringing, they just get up and go away from the classroom. But this has to be controlled. Okay. So what to do when the bell rings? So if we talk to the students, if we pre-hand tell the students that if the bell rings and still the professor is in the class, they should not leave their seats. They should not get up. So this is the mental training to them. Like when the bell rings, what they have to do, they will keep sitting until the professor is asking them to leave. So this we have to interact to them. So this is how we control the behavior. What to do when the pencil breaks, what to do, these are just examples. What to do when you hear an emergency alert signal, or when you have not finished your work, or you have finished your work. What to do when you have a question, or what to do when you need to go to the restroom. How to enter the classroom without making the noises, where to put your completed work. So similar kind of question should be pre-hand prepared by the professor or the teacher and can be shared with the students. 3 steps to teach procedures: explain, rehearse, and reinforce. So first of all, we need to explain, we need to prepare FAQs and state, explain, model, and demonstrate the procedure. We have to tell them like on what situation, what they have to do. And then we have to bring that into the practice in each classroom. So by the end of the semester or the end of a year, you will see there is a drastic change in the students' behavior. And then reinforce, reteach, rehearse, practice in every classroom, reinforce. And if the students is not doing, ask them to do it again, and politely ask them to do it again until it brings into their habit and routine. Discipline with the body, not with the mouth. This is for the professors and the teachers especially. Excuse yourself from what you are doing. Relax. Be calm all the time, because you do not have the authority to humiliate, to shout on them. But we can only have to deal things with the motivation and by understanding the students. Face the students directly and calmly. Wait for a response. If there is no response, whisper the student's first name and follow with what you want the student to do, ending with the please, relax, and wait. Okay. So we should not be very disruptive or harsh, or the teacher's anger should be focused or should be thrown on the students. If the student does not get to work, relax, wait, repeat. Step 4 if necessary. Wait for the students, talk to them politely, ask them for the reasons for not responding. They might have some problems. They are unable to speak up about their problems. So sympathetically, empathetically, this step has to be done. If back talk occurs, relax, wait and keep quiet. If the student wants to talk back, keep the first principle of dealing with the backtail in mind. That is, relax and deal the situation calmly. When the student responds with a appropriate behavior, say thank you and leave with an affirmative smile. If a student goes far as to earn an office referral, you can deliver it to this. Deal the situation absolutely with a relaxed state of mind. Now, the beginning and ending routines. Beginning and ending routines of the classrooms, of the sessions. That is a main part of classroom psychology. While a professor is entering the classroom, the goal should be like student will feel welcome and will immediately go to their seats and start on a productive task. So that should be the aura and the personality of our teacher maintained throughout, so that students themselves uh, welcome the teacher coming to the class. Greet the students at the door. Do not ignore them, please. Have a task prepared pre-hand for the students to work on as they sit down, and do your housekeeping. Keep tasks short, 3 to 5 minutes, so that you have ample time to discuss on the task thereafter. When you have finished, address the task, give them the feedbacks, positive feedbacks, not the criticism. Tell them the criticism should be taken positively for the growth, for the improvement of the work. So these kind of sentences should be used. Ending routine, the goal for the ending routine should be like your prepare your procedures for the ending. Ensure that students will not leave the classroom before they have organized their own materials and completed any necessary cleanup task. Like usually in the design schools, it happens because there are a lot of material which gets spread across the floor and the tables. So it should be asked to the students to clean it up so that the next class who is coming receives a good classroom. Ensure that you have enough time to give students both positive and corrective feedback and to set a positive tone for ending in the class. Now, the dismissal of the class, the goal for the dismissal should be like student will not leave the classroom until they are told to do so by the teacher, ignoring the bell. So until the professor asks them to leave, they should keep sitting in a disciplined manner in the classroom. Explain that the bell is a signal for you. Excuse the class when things are reasonably quiet and all wrap-up activities are completed. Now, the classroom management plan, how we should do. It has 8 components. Classroom management plan has 8 components. The level of classroom structure, guidelines for success, specific rules, teaching expectations, monitoring, encouragement procedures, correction procedures, managing student work. So the first component which comes for the classroom management plan is level of classroom structure based on the risk factor of your students. So this is what is decided by the teacher, like whatever task you are arranging for the students, you have to pre-count, pre-see by knowing the psychology of the students, what you have to do, when you have to do, how, and on home, which students you have to apply what. Guidelines for the success, their attitude, their regularity, their consistency in the work should be the traits and the behaviors to help achieve success. So you have to pre-hand tell them that this kind of behavior, this kind of attitude is expected so that you can complete the work on the time. Then the rules, specific and observable rules, measurable rules should be kept as a behavioral objectives. So this also should be communicated to the students whenever we are planned to give them a task. So every time tell them a student how to do it, what is expected outcome, show them if there is some benchmark already created by you. And this has to be communicated again and again to the students. Teaching expectations, what, how, and when expectations will be taught. Monitoring the work regularly to each student by going to their seat, seeing what they are doing, and giving them the instant feedback also for the correction, so that every student can reach to a level of goodness and they have a satisfaction among themselves that, oh wow, we have done this work. Encouragement procedures, how you will encourage students to demonstrate motivated, keep them motivated throughout the work. Some students might face a lot of difficulty in the simpler tasks also. So we should be pre-hand prepared for that. Correction procedures, how you will respond to irresponsible behavior. So if you are teaching, you have a great years of experience, they can easily do it. But you should keep in mind the behavior of the student expected from the slow learner, especially when you are giving them a difficult task. So irresponsible behavior, some students keep roaming around in the classroom. So how to control it, how to manage it. So it has to be done motivatingly. So you have to freehand prepare some task for them to keep them engaged in the classroom so that they keep stick on the desk to complete the task. Managing student work, the procedures and the systems should be set, used to manage students' work. Dealing with the anger, which is a major issue in the classroom. Some of the students are highly agitated and with a small behavior because of their background or the family background. Some students have uh, inbuilt a strong anger into them. So we'll see now how we have to measure it and how we have to correct it. And the goals for the angry students, how to help the channel and direct the student to constructive outcomes. So first of all, we have to identify these angry students in the classroom, the disturbing elements of the classroom, and then we have to see how we can channelize their energy towards a good work. Assess the child in learning acceptable ways of expressing the emotions. So that might require interacting with them a lot of times and to see what are the triggers for their angers. So that should be avoided. That could be avoided by the student, by the teacher itself. And we then can tell them that how the strength of energy which is coming up in the anger can be channelized to do some passionate work, converting that anger into a passion towards the work. Anger may be a defensive mode to avoid painful feelings or some kind of failure, which usually anxiety, which usually students have, which is associated with low self-esteem, feeling of isolation, feeling of shame if they have done something wrong, or the anxiety of being neglected, ignored by the peers members. So these might be certain factors which are inducing anger in the students. So this has to be identified. And the angry child interventions, catch the child being good, tell what behaviors pleases them. Respond to positive efforts and enforce good behavior. So we have to continuously tell them, and this is my recent experience also. Like on a very student who has misbehaved a lot, I just calmly told them that this is what is expected in the industry, and you have to develop this professional behavior. And the student, when the positive things are communicated to them, they understand and they immediately correct their behavior, especially in an environment where certain kind of behavior is expected. So thanks for sitting in your seat quietly. So these kind of positive and constructive sentences usually develops a good behavior and controls the angers in the student. You worked hard on that project and I admire your effort. So these kind of sentences can be used with them frequently, regularly. Deliberately ignore inappropriate behavior that can be tolerated. Tell child what you are doing. If attention seeking, it will get worse before better. Be consistent. Provide physical outlets and other alternatives. You can ask them to take a walk, take a jog around the university, around the college. And this is the applied methods where their angers get down and they then further concentrate on the work to release their stored energy. So some meaningful kind of task can be developed. Manipulate the surroundings. Look what triggers angers in them in the classroom, in the outside behavior. Some students, so you can separate them from such kind of students who are triggering anger in them deliberately. Re-examine the rules if required. A flexibility is required, then it should be done. Consider the child's physical space. Use closeness and touching. Move physically closer to the child. Consider gently placing your hand on the child's shoulder, smoothly and warmly. Works best with the children. Some children, not all the children. Express interest in the children activities, appreciate them, talk to them, ease tension through humor, cut some jokes if required, some kind of humor, or not a sarcastic tone, but only a positive humor. Behavior modifications. Now we'll see how these modifications in the behaviors can be done. Am I audible throughout?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. So we're talking about behavior modifications. So in the behavior, pre-corrections and the post-corrections. We'll talk about the pre-corrections in the behavior, what methods can be used, and what methods can be used for the post-corrections. So you can use the sentences like thank you for not smoking, or thank you for obeying the words, and thank you for giving the respect to my words. Some kind of these sentences serves as a gentle reminder of expectations, what is expected out of them in your classroom, at least in your classrooms. If when every faculty, every teacher will be doing it, so this change in behavior will definitely occur in the student. Give student an opportunity to mentally prepare before an activity. Give them some time. Like I've given you 5 minutes of time. Just research on it, work on it, and if it is okay, if you find some problem, I'll help. So these kind of words actually give them a strength that somebody will not punish us, will not defame us if we are not able to work. Because this hesitation usually lies in a lot of students. Always respond to sincere efforts to comply. And if a student is consistently doing it, then tell them that your behavior is not improving. You need to work yourself. Sit here, I'll help you. And in initial 1 and 2 activities, we can help, but not in all the activities, because then it becomes the bad habit of a student. So there are 7 steps for the pre-correction for the classrooms. These 7 steps are identifying the context and the likely problem behavior. So you first be able to identify the problem behavior, which every teacher is able to do it. And specify the expected behaviors. Tell them what is expected in 50 minutes when you are with me. Tell them like, I need you to be quiet during this 30 minutes when I'm delivering the lecture. And then we will be having 10 minutes of interaction. Then I'm expecting that all the students should be interacting, because I will be marking on your interaction basis. So interact something, interact at least wrong, say something wrong, that's fine. But do definitely say something, because that's the student's right to say wrong. Okay. So these kind of positive sentences actually immediately develop confidence in them. So students get the confidence that, and it helps the removal of hesitation, because they know even if they say wrong, they will not get be scolded for it. It will be appreciated, because at least they're understanding the concept somehow, somewhere. So these kind of sentences are the constructive sentences. Systematically modify the context, conduct behavior rehearsals in each classroom multiple times in a single session, and provide strong reinforcement for expected behaviors. Then continuously keep them reminding what you expect. What kind of personality are you expecting out of them? What kind of emotional management what you are expecting out of them? What kind of personality after the completion of the session when they'll go to the industry is expected out of them? So when we continuously enforce onto them, they learn it. That becomes their habit. Prompt expected behaviors and monitor the plan and repeat the plan whenever it is required. Pre-correction scenarios can be here. There is an example we'll discuss about. A context is students entering classroom immediately after recess. So what kind of behavior you think a student would be coming after recess? Will be they are full of energy and they're already indisciplined, and they will run through the classroom, they'll disturb the desk, they make noises, and these kind of expected behavior. But how can we control it? We are not expecting that they'll first waste 15 minutes in just controlling them. So expected behavior is when the student is entering the classroom, quietly go to the desk, begin the task, and keep hands to self. This is the expected behavior. But we already know when the students are coming immediately after recess, how they will behave. So this can be controlled when we already knowing it. So context modifications. How can we modify it? Teacher meets students at the door and has them wait and then go to the desk to begin entry task. So initially, standing on the gate, only we can say, okay, calm down. Now this is your class time. Your recess time is over. Now you have to concentrate again back to your classroom. Go quietly and sit quietly on their desk. So this kind of sentences has to be repeated by the teachers positively, calmly. Behavior rehearsals. Teacher reminds students just before recess of expected behavior. If the same teacher has the classroom. But if a teacher is having classroom always after the recess, then in their continuous classes, they can tell them about the expected behavior and they can give the rehearsals about the expected behaviors. Strong reinforcement, students are told that if they cooperate with teacher's request, they will have additional break and 5 extra minutes for recess, or some kind of other rewards a teacher can think of. Prompts, teacher gives signals at the door to be quiet and point to the activity. Teacher says shh to noisy students and praises students who are beginning work. And they can also use some other kind of symbols, which is appropriate and comfortable by the teachers. 5 steps of corrections. Now we'll talk about these. List previous positive behaviors, state current behavior, okay, and then state expectations. Then the child repeats, praise any efforts, and then repeat. Repeat this continuously. This is a continuous process. It is not like it has been given in the one classroom and we are expecting students to remember it and do it. No, we have to regularly, continuously apply it in all the classrooms. So it is a continuous activity. So in all the classrooms, we have to tell them what expected behavior is, what behavior is expected out of them in each of the classroom. And in every classroom, in the initial 1 and 2 minutes, we have to do this exercise. This exercise has to be done by the teacher itself. List previous positive behaviors. Like in the last classroom, you have behaved this way and this was good and I appreciate this habit. Like Elizabeth, yesterday, you did such a good job staying in your seat and paying attention. I really appreciate that. Or you was quite interactive in the class. You had a good knowledge. You have studied well before coming to the class. So I appreciate this. So this kind of appreciation is also a motivation to the other students. State current behavior, like if students is not behaved good yesterday and not behaving good today. So this has to be reminded to them so that they learn slowly that in every class they have to behave this way. State expectations, and let's like using the name, what I expect from you, and for you to go to your seat or do your work and do this quality of the work, need an improvement in the quality of the work. Sit in your seat, pay attention, and only talk when asked to be asked to, and do not talk to your neighbors. Discuss with me instead. So these kind of works should be continuously interacted and told to the students. Praise the efforts if they are doing. Be positive, be sincere, be encouraging, and you need a positive relationship with the students to use this effectively. If you want it, teach it. If you expect to maintain it, encourage it, acknowledge it, and reinforce it. Post corrections allows the child an opportunity to process and learn from the experience. Should be done by the adult. Adult here means professor or teacher who witnesses the incidences. Should be done within the 24 hours. If we have seen certain behavior which need a correction, it has to be done immediately and should be enforced from the students within the 24 hours. Because then only student will also remember what they have done and what wrong they have done which they need to improve. 5 steps to post correction is youth perception. Adult here again is professor or a teacher should listen carefully, listen peacefully, but not in terms. So let student be open with their heart completely, should come out with their open heart and tell you everything what they are suffering from, because every student will be having absolutely different problems. So we should have a patience here to listen to them. Refrain from judgment and corrections. Ask questions which help student with description. Attempt to find out what students was trying to achieve. Okay. But while doing all this, do not get friendly with the students. Remain professional. Like this is a client, it has a problem, and I need to solve the problem for the client. Okay, but in the doing this, I do not have to develop a relationship. Student, what is the teacher's perception? Discuss what parts of incident you see same and differently, and what corrections can be done. Connection incident to the pattern of behavior. Assist a student in seeing a behavior pattern he and she has developed, because the third person can easily see. The person who is suffering cannot see it. So we can ask a teacher can help them to understand their behavior well and can also give them the corrective measures. Explore alternative behaviors. Reminders may be given. Use important to let students find options, and deviation methods of diverting their behavior or deviations from that behavior can be given, and the help of a counselor can also be taken when the situation is critical. Develop a plan, may use behavior contracts, assure student of teacher's commitment, discuss consequences for the next incidents. Always say what you mean and mean what you say, but do not say that in a mean way. Yes. The session here is over, so I'm ready for the questions. Hello?